Hi guys, welcome to another lecture, discussion, whatever you would want to call it, in the series where we're talking about critical approaches to literature. Okay, um, we've already covered the part where we said that philosophical inquiry towards a text is the first step when you're talking about trying to approach a piece of work critically. And within that, of course, we also discussed what does philosophical inquiry mean, um, what are the major critical questions that you need to be able to design to be able to practice philosophical inquiry towards a text, what are the roles and functions of a critique, as well as their criticism. All of those things we've already discussed. Um, So today we're going to be opening up a new topic or a chapter within philosophical inquiry and Platonic dilemma, which is of poetry and the moralists. Now, poetry and the moralists is a term that you may have heard in a lot of other places. There are lots of probably other books also that you may have come across that talk about poetry and the moralists. But firstly, let me explain why is it important to the idea of being able to approach a piece of text critically. Okay, um firstly, I hope everybody knows that the first piece of organized composition of words that was recognized as literature was quite literally poetry. Okay, now when that happened, um when there was composition of words which was used to not just communicate literal truth but also um, imagination or ideas, stuff like that. um, and philosophical systems were being developed, and to communicate the ideas within those philosophical systems, um, words were being organized like poetry almost. um, Poetry almost, I'm saying, because some of the earlier texts that we read which are said to be poetry, they don't seem like poetry, right? In today's time, for example, um, say stuff that's been done by Egyptians and Persians, um, which you can only probably be able to read the translation of until and unless you're so well versed uh, in languages like Persian and Arabic and uh, even Hebrew. Um, but okay, so that's when the idea of morals started setting in, right? Because now um, when people are writing imaginative literature, they're writing just about anything. Now, when they're writing just about anything, obviously sometimes it does raises a lot of questions in the society. People are like, oh, but how can this person write this? How can this person write that? That is um when ideas were organized like that, and because early on it was poetry, that's where the roots lay of morals when it comes to critical approach. Um, Hence the whole theme of poetry and the moralists. Now, obviously, one thing that's really important to note in this is that that in the very early days or early stages uh, of like civilization and the development of literary texts, the line or the distinction between poetic and literal truth was almost blurred, since especially since all discourse in language is and has been conducted through a kind of spontaneous symbolism, right? And almost all of the statements that were made early on in poetry were metaphorical. Um, and obviously then imagination was at hand to be able to make sense of, communicate certain ideas about the literal or the real world. I'm also mentioning this because I think from the things that I have to cover, let's just leave things at this much only in today's discussion, because I know this is a bit complicated and I'm also finding it a bit complicated to explain these things. But okay, so when we talk about something like, say, something like, say, the early scriptures in religion, okay? Now, initially, a lot of them were considered as poetry, right? It was said that this is the word of the God, and that is why it is, this eloquent. Now, when that started happening, and some people started believing it, some people were not believing it, the idea occurred that, okay, but what is morally right in this, and what is morally not right in this? Because that early composition of words in that manner was of course not just addressing the idea of morals in the society, but also affecting them in a lot of ways, influencing them about what is wrong, what is right. Hence, and that was the understanding of religious texts is one of very early formal example of critical approach to literature, because that was literature, that is literature, right? The interpretation of that word, which seemed so poetic, but also raised a lot of questions that, okay, why are we being told that, this is right and this is wrong? Had a ripple effect, or had a mirror effect, because on the other end, people were also like, okay, but if this is telling us this, then, how are we, how do we not question that, okay, fine, we're being told this, and but we're doing this, so then why can't we question that what is right in this piece of imaginative literature and what is not right in this piece of imaginative literature? Because you also could not, and you can't raise a word against the word of God, right? Hence, that became one of the roots in understanding critical approach to literature, poetry and moralism. And we're going to go deep in this. This is a really complicated branch of critical approach to literature. We're going to go deep into this. It's important to understand because when we're talking about writing quality criticism, or when we're talking about being able to approach a piece of work critically in the right way, those certain morals that we will talk about, and or the ideas of those morals, they're not just to explain people not to diss a piece of work, right? We all know that, especially in today's world, it's like, because we're living in the world of like meme culture and all of that stuff, you make fun of something, that's what will probably get you more views and stuff like that. Um, but at the same time, and I'm not saying that good criticism will not sometimes, for example, talk about that, okay, this is a cultural insight that perhaps could have been integrated in this text but was not. But at the same time, here we're going to talk about um, the the fragile nature of criticism, and what makes it fragile in certain ways is these factors like morals, for example. I hope this was comprehensive, and I hope I have been able to explain why we're opening this chapter, and where did it begin from, stuff like that. I just want to repeat again that I know critical approaches to literature, understanding it, and then later on being able to put it into practice in the right way is not the most easiest thing to go about with. But trust me, once you're able to get a good grasp of it, not just like your prescribed text that you're reading, you would be able to write better answers about them, but you will also be able to understand communication better, and from your end also you might be able to communicate better. I know it kind of sounds very it sounds like a bluff saying this, because right now I am trying to explain critical approaches to literature and I'm not able to communicate properly about it. But you know what I mean? Or maybe not. But okay, guys, if you like the video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Refer to the notes in the description to perhaps be able to read everything that I've said and make better sense of it. I hope that I was able to make good sense of it for everyone, but yeah, those notes are like a supplementary thing to help you guys further. And don't forget to do the task and press the bell icon to stay updated for whenever a new video drops in. And yeah, and feel free to ask any questions in the comments below. If you guys need additional explanation on anything, that part. See you guys soon, as we further open up this idea of poetry and the moralists, and why is it important to understand that. I think that part I've already sort of explained. Why is it important to understand that when you're talking about approaching a piece of literature critically? But yeah, that's about it. See you guys soon.